Okay, got a lot to unpack. I just got back from the gym, so please excuse my appearance. Episode 9, Rewind 1921. This pretty much will focus solely on the Tulsa riots. This was a very, very somber episode. A lot of things in this we were going to go over. I will take my time with this. Okay, so let's continue. Letty, Tick, Ruby, and Montrose point fingers for who's to blame for Dee's condition as she begins to slowly turn into that pickaninny. The two girl pickaninnies, the caricatures. I think their names are Topsy and Boxy, I believe. Tick offers to give Christina the pages, the book of Titus's pages in exchange to help Dee. Letty tells Tick she already gave her the pages for Tick's protection, but instead was given it, and protection was placed onto Letty herself. Montrose then snaps at Letty. Ruby then tells Tick Christina will help Dee. Christina needs the book of names from Captain Lannister. Dee is slowly turning into a pickaninny. Christina agrees to help restore the curse's cycle, basically reset the cycle. If Tick comes back to Artem for the autumnal equinox, Tick agrees. So basically, just going to rewind the clock on Dee's curse. Tick also needs the blood of Dee's closest relative. We would assume that would be Montrose. But then Montrose gives a look like, I don't know, it could be, could not be. Captain Lancaster isn't responding well to the regeneration spell. Lannister has been swapping dead black people's bodies for his. This is why in the past episodes it looks like he's been stitched together at the collar, because basically the top part of his body is his, and then they swap the torso of using black people's torsos for him, and he regenerates. But then William walks in and says regeneration could be life or death. It's not working for Captain Lannister. His wounds keep reappearing from the Shoggoth attack from episode 8. And then William walks over to the desk and pulls out the rune that Ruby had placed in the couple episodes prior at the party, the night of the party. It's a rune that it's preventing Lannister's regeneration to take effect, and so basically he's slowly dying. William then watches Lannister die. Lancaster. And then Montrose begins drinking some of George's moonshine. It's called Road Rash. Montrose wishes he had gotten shot instead of George. Montrose tells Tick his blood might not work, and that Tick might be George's son. Montrose then says they grew up together, Montrose, Dora, and George, and they all survived Tulsa. Tick says he spent time in George's shop hiding from Montrose, wishing George was his father, because basically he's pretty much upset at this point, and snaps at Montrose. In walks Hippolyta. We knew she was coming, we just didn't see how, or, you know. Christina then performs the ceremony using Hippolyta's blood. Dee is currently or temporarily restored. They have 24 hours to find the source of the curse. Letty tries to warn Ruby about Christina. Ruby believes Christina has good intentions. I am personally tired of Ruby. I said this in the last episode. I'm tired of Ruby. Ruby just wants to be a white woman. Period. And she tries to justify her wanting to be a white woman on other external forces and situations. No, Ruby secretly wants to be a white woman. That's all to it. Hippolyta decides to take Dee back to the observatory to go back in time to Tulsa to find the source of the curse. Hippolyta was on Earth 504 for 200 years. Okay, so we've already deduced that there's a multiverse, like DC's Flashpoint or Marvel's upcoming Mouth of Madness. Different, all in the comics. There's all different versions of Earth. Everybody's got multiverses in their storylines for comics. Okay. She says she gained infinite wisdom with infinite possibilities. She can name herself anything. They have 24 hours until Dee's curse takes hold again. Ruby then asks about Dell's body in Christina's basement. Dell was the groundskeeper with the two German shepherds back in Artem. Ruby then questions Christina's intentions. Christina tells Ruby she needs Tick's blood to become immortal. That's her end game. She wants to live as a white man. Here's all part of the kicker. Christina then promises Ruby to not hurt Letty. Ruby says she wants to be a red-haired white woman as she then turns off Dell's oxygen tank. So Christina wants to be a white man. She wants to live her life as a white man. And then we have Ruby wanting to be a white woman. So while the white woman is choosing to ascend to the ultimate top of the totem pole, it seems the black woman it will be happy to be the underling. So there nothing trumps the white man on the totem pole, but yet we have the sister here in Ruby would just be happy just being the subordinate and wanting to be a white woman. It's a lot to unpack. Letty, Hippolyta, Tick, and Dee go to the observatory in Mayfield, Kentucky. I thought it was in Kentucky, but it's in Kansas, right? Remember that episode? It was originally Mayfield, Kentucky, but now they went to Mayfield, Kansas. I'm sure that wasn't an oversight. I'm sure they did that on purpose. Is this another multiverse that we don't know about? Who knows? Montrose then tells Letty Tick knows she's pregnant. He tells her Tick went to the future and saw his death and their future son. The time machine is repaired. There are 60 trillion universes. Hippolyta is the motherboard to direct them to the right universe of Tulsa. They are not allowed to alter the past. Montrose is hesitant. He remembers his father's beatings. Montrose talks about Booker T High School prom being canceled right before the riots. And they steal clothes to blend in. And while they walk down the street, there's a movie playing called The Goat, starring Buster Keaton. In The Goat, it's about Buster Keaton plays a character who is wrongly framed or convicted by a cop. He's wrongly arrested. Now, if we go into the cause of the Tulsa riots, one story that I read was there was a black man who was accused of doing something to a white person. They threw him in jail, and the word got out that there was a white mob was coming to lynch him. So then 75 brothers went to the jail to make sure nothing happened to the young brother. But then as the 75 black men were leaving, a bunch of racists show up to try to disarm the black men, and then a shootout begins, and that's what kicked off the riots, if you believe that version of events. Montrose then has flashbacks. Tick disowns Montrose in a fit of rage. They make it to Montrose's house. A young Montrose is seen being beaten by his father, Verton, George, for wearing George's prom jacket and wearing George's corsage in his hair. His father saw that. So then his father took him outside and started beating him with a switch. Dora, at the time, Tick's mom, had stepped in to stop Verton from beating Montrose. She then chastises George for not stepping in, because George and Dora were dating. Okay, Dora chastises. Word of the prom cancellation had spread. Dora and George go looking for the young Montrose. Letty and Tick go looking for the older Montrose, who runs off. Letty then tells Tick to name their son George. The riots begin. Letty is then shot by a racist, but is then protected by Montrose's dad, Verton, and Dora's dad. Letty meets the family, and they begin to arm themselves. So at this point, they're pretty much all in Verton's house, which would be Montrose's father's house. Tick catches Montrose. Montrose is watching his younger self meet his boyfriend, Thomas. Thomas was then shot in the head by racists during the riots. So basically, Montrose is having to watch his first love die all over again, this time from a vantage point from being far away. Montrose wants to save Thomas, even though they're not allowed to save anybody or change the past. Dora's sister, Beulah, then admits to liking George and thinks everything is going to be okay. She's talking to Letty at this point. And then the shooting begins. Montrose tells Tick Thomas was the first of a long line of sacrifices he made to be Tick's father. Young Montrose calls Thomas the F word and breaks up with him. Montrose then tells Tick all he ever wanted to be was his father. Back at the house, Letty tells Hattie, the great-great-grandmother of Tick, she's from the future. And then after Hattie pulled a gun on Letty, because she's like, your shoes are not from this time. Who are you? What are you doing here? So then Letty tells Hattie the truth, that she's from the future, and she starts naming names. And then she says, then Hattie says, so we're all gonna die here in Tulsa. Letty then affirms Hattie's birthmark. So then racists surround the house and begin to set the house on fire. Racists then at the same time surround young Montrose and Thomas and shoots Thomas in the head while the blood splatter lands on Montrose's face and brain matter. So then Letty tells Hattie everything as the house burns down around them. Hattie gives Letty the book of names. George shows up to save Montrose with a baseball bat. The young George. And then they get overtaken. So then Hattie says when her great-grandson is born, he will be her faith turned to flesh. Tick picks up a baseball bat. Tick is the stranger that Montrose remembers that showed up that night to help Tick, George, and Dora after Thomas got shot. So remember in the very beginning of the first episode, Tick has this recurring dream of Jackie Robinson with the baseball bat beating up all the aliens, saving him and Jen Ah when she was pink or purple. The most painful scene for me in this is this. Letty begins to pray with Hattie as she's consumed by fire, as the poem called "Catch the Fire" plays in the background by Sonia Sanchez. So now we have this dark-skinned black woman literally being burned alive, holding hands with this light-skinned mixed mulatto woman, being consumed by flames. Basically everybody in the house is of darker complexion, and everybody in the house dies or is burned or is shot. So then there's that element of the dark skin, light skin. The light skinned woman is the future savior of the bloodline to a certain extent, the future progenitor, while all the dark skinned blacks unfortunately have to die in some just crazed sacrifice. So then as Tick picks up the baseball bat, Tick is the stranger, I'm sorry. Letty then prays with Hattie. Okay, George, Dora, and Montrose watch Tick beat up the racists. Tulsa is filled with burnings and shootouts. Tick and Montrose make it back to the portal. Hippolyta can't hold the portal open much longer, trapping George briefly in the present. Montrose then watches Tulsa burn down again and begins to actually name names of the actual victims of the Tulsa riots. So you watch the episode, all the people he's naming were actual victims of the riots. Very, very moving scene. Letty and Montrose make it through the portal with the book of names. Hippolyta's hair turns blue. She is now officially Orinthia Blue. I still say the riots portrayed in The Watchmen, I don't know, has a little bit more. No. I'll take that back. This version of the riots here has a little bit more gravitas than the Watchmen's version of the Tulsa riots. They're still both moving, very, very impactful, very powerful. I guess what won it over for me was when Montrose was naming the actual victims of the riots. So that kind of puts it over the top over the Watchmen's version of the riots. So if you haven't seen the Watchmen, watch it for that just for the Tulsa riot scene alone, and then compare the two and see if you come to the same conclusion as I have. We're one episode left for the season finale. I'm excited. This episode was a bit emotionally draining. It might be a little bit much for some people. So take your time and process it as best as you can. You guys have a good one. Peace.